All right, welcome everyone. This is Hayden Harrington with Momentum Multifamily. Super excited to have everyone here with us today. We're very excited to be joined by none other than Tim Bratz, the founder of Legacy Wealth Holdings, here with us today. Super excited to have you join with us. I'm going to introduce Dustin Miles, my business partner.
Hi, yeah, Dustin Miles. I'm in Fort Worth, Texas, and super excited to have Tim today. And so we'll go ahead and just jump on in. And yeah, Tim, if you would just kind of give us your story, and and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, awesome. Excited to be here. Got a lot of respect for you guys and what you guys are doing in the multifamily world. So appreciate you having me. And yeah, I'll give you guys kind of like a high level on my background. And I know the number one question I always get is like, how'd you get into it, right? And so when I was going through college, '03 to 2007, the market real estate market was going crazy, right? Like everybody's making money in real estate, and I was a money motivated kid, So I was like, where can I go make a bunch of money? And people like get involved in real estate. And so when I graduated college in 2007, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio originally, and I moved out to New York City because my brother was living out there. And I thought you got involved in real estate by becoming a real estate agent. So I got my real estate license in New York. And for some reason, I parked it with a commercial brokerage. I don't know. I don't remember why, what the impetus of that was. But I parked it with a commercial real estate brokerage, and I brokered leases for retail and office. And not the easiest business, especially like getting started as a punk 22-year-old kid in New York City and Manhattan, and dealing with all these sharks and stuff. And so I got like these scrap listings, and it was like bottom of the barrel type stuff. And there was one property that I had that was my first deal that I ever closed. It took me about 8 months to close it. It was only 400 square feet in Manhattan, in Greenwich Village area. And so I closed this deal, 400 square feet, and we signed a lease with a falafel shop that paid $10,000 a month for that 400 square foot space, with 4% annual increases and a 12-year lease term. And as a money motivated kid, you start doing the math on that. You realize I need to be owning real estate, not brokering real estate, because this landlord's going to make almost $2 million over the next 12 years for doing something one time. And that didn't include the other, I don't know, there were 6 or 7 other retail spaces and like 10 stories of apartments above it. And I'm like, man, I need to be a real estate investor. I need to hold real estate. And so, thinking I'm limited by the amount of money I had, I was like, I can't buy anything in New York City. So I started looking at other areas and found myself in Charleston, South Carolina about a year later. So I moved down to Charleston, South Carolina, and again, dive into all the different real estate books and programs and study courses and following all the gurus online, and trying to learn everything before I did anything, and had that whole analysis paralysis thing take place, and finally realized after 6, 8 months of doing that I'm not going to learn how to swim by reading about swimming in a book. I actually have to jump in the water. So I said, I'm going to go make an offer on a property. And I looked at the MLS. The cheapest house on the MLS was 25 grand. This is 2009 now. So after the market had just crashed, right? I'm showing up to the party. Everybody else is running out the back door saying, run from real estate. I'm like, dude, I just got here. And I found the cheapest house on the MLS, bank owned, duplex, C-class area at best. And it was an absolute pig. Only 25 grand. That was awesome. Only problem was I didn't have $25,000. So how do you get it? And I called up my credit card company and asked them to increase my credit limit. They increased my credit limit to $15,000. So I had to go in low, right? I go in at 12. They come back at 20. I went in at 14, which was the most I could possibly do, and they accepted it. And so I essentially bought my first house on a credit card, and physically did all the work. I did all the painting. I did all the landscaping. I did all the carpentry type stuff. I'm YouTubing how to change out carpet. I'm YouTubing how to change out light fixtures. And I'm doing all the work myself on this property. Got a couple of my buddies to help out, literally paying them with pizza and beer. And, renovated the house in about 45 days, let's call it. Held an open house. One of the neighbors came in, made me an offer, and for $33,000. I was all into it for around 19,000. And the neighbor comes in, makes me an offer for 33 grand, cash, closing 30 days. I was like, done. So, because this thing was still a pig. It just had a little bit of lipstick on it, right? And so I ended up selling it to this guy. And again, everybody's running from real estate. And I just made $14,000. It's the biggest check I've ever made in my life. 23 years old. And I'm like, let's go do it again. Right. So then you start doing more and more deals and you do another one. I got into flipping houses. I got into wholesaling houses. Short sales and short sale negotiations was a big thing back then. Loan modifications was a big thing back then. So I learned how to creatively acquire properties because money was very hard to come by. There's a dichotomy in real estate where usually when there's a lot of deals, it's hard to find money, right? Or when there's a lot of money, it's hard to find deals. And so back then it was very easy to find deals, very hard to find money. And so I had to creatively get involved in deals, seller financing, option contracts, taking over people's loans and doing loan modifications, subject to deals, like all sorts of different kind of creative structuring of projects. And it was never easy, right? It was like always a difficult market in order to move property and stuff. But got into buying and holding some property after a couple of years, and started meeting people who said, hey, I got money, but I don't have access. I don't know how to do deals. I don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the knowledge. So how about I put up the money and Tim, you go do the deal. And I ended up partnering with my first private money lenders and just started scaling up, and so built up a small portfolio in Charleston, chased some shiny objects, lost a bunch of money, sold my real estate, and then sold my real estate while I was chasing shiny objects, thinking I was going to get rich quick somewhere else. And then went broke instead, and then had to get out of that hole. And real estate got me back out of that hole. So I moved back up to Cleveland in 2012, build up a portfolio again there. And, today, here I am. I own 4,288 doors as we're talking here today. I'm actually going to be selling a bunch of stuff, but I'm a net buyer. My goal, my ambition is to sell some stuff. I'll probably sell about 2,000 units over the next 60, 90 days. But my goal is to pick up about 4,000 doors next year. So we're still very ambitious.
Wow, that's awesome to hear. What span of time has that been too? I think I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, so I bought my first apartment building when I got back up to Cleveland in 2012. And I had some partners, some exclusive partners that put up a few $100,000 and eventually got up to about $1 million. And I just kept on trading up into bigger and bigger apartment buildings, 8 unit, another 8 unit, a 16 unit, 23 unit, 31 unit. And I just kept on building up a little bit of a portfolio. And we got up to about 140 doors by 2015. And that partnership ended up just kind of folding, right? Like the partners ended up saying, hey, life happens. We're going our separate ways. And then we had to liquidate everything. So that sucked. I had to press the reset button again 3 years after I just did press the reset button before from another failed venture. And but I had the insights, right? People can't take the knowledge and the expertise away from you. And there were a lot of people who wanted to do business with me that I couldn't do business with because I had this exclusive partnership. So it actually was more of a door opening and a lot more opportunity for me than it was a hindrance. And so I started building my current portfolio in August of 2015. And that's, so I've been able to do it in a little over 5 years.
That's awesome. So what does your, different people have different structures. There's some guys that they don't really partner with anyone. They have everything kind of in-house. Maybe they have third-party management company, but it's all them and their employees. And then there's some people that kind of employ, they just have a different model. They're partnering with different people. They have their criteria, but they do partner with other people. Do you are you doing a little bit of both, or are you sitting in one bucket or the other?
Yeah, I mean, we technically we do syndicate. We do it in a little bit different of a way than most syndicators. I have a team, like in 2015 when I kind of started going on my own again, excuse me, we started flipping houses. We were doing 80 to 100 houses a year for the next couple of years. We built up a management company. And while I was doing that, I was also buying multifamily again on a part-time basis. And in 2017, I realized like most of my net worth was coming from my apartments, and it was only like 10% of my time. So I shifted all my resources on the flipping side of my business to just buying apartment buildings. And so I have an acquisitions guy, I have a project manager, I have a dispositions guy who now does my asset management, I have a COO, and then eventually I brought my attorney in-house. So I have a chief investment officer, and I have a chief marketing or a director of marketing now that I brought on. And so I have a core team of around, I think there's 7 or 8 of us. And that's kind of like the main team. Now there's obviously subcontractors and vendors and on-site property managers and maintenance person, and all that stuff on a per property basis as well. But my core investment team is just a handful of people. So what we do is we raise money from private investors. I've never taken institutional debt at all. I've always worked with, mom and pop. Hey, I got money in my IRA. I have money in my 401k. I have money in the bank account. Or they're an entrepreneur. I sold my business, or I just launched a product. I'm sitting on a couple $1 million. But majority of my investors have somewhere between 100 to a couple $1 million with me. And we probably have about 50 million in play right now of investor equity in deals. But my model is a little bit different though. I come from residential. I come from the single family world. And the model for buying single family houses and flipping single family houses is to buy it and renovate it to be all in for about 65% of the after repair value. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that model or that equation, but that's always how single family works. And so when I got into multifamily, I figure I've never taken a course, right? I've never been to a class on this stuff. I've never been to a seminar, read a book on it or anything. So I just took the same model I knew in single family and I duplicated it in multifamily. And so my model was always, I got to be all into this building that's going to be worth $1 million for 650 grand. Or if it's going to be worth 10 million, I have to be all in for 6.5 million. And what that allowed me to do is then, after a couple of years, and that's usually going to be properties that are pretty distressed, right? They're physically distressed, they're managerially distressed, they're motivated sellers in some capacity where you can go in, buy it at a deep discount, and then you create appreciation from the sweat equity that you put in. And so on all of those properties that I've done, you can create that appreciation in a fairly short amount of time. You don't have to speculate or just let natural rents increase over 5 to 10 years. I was able to force appreciation in about 12 to 24 months. So because of that, now I'm all into this building for 6.5 million. It appraises for 10. I can go get a 70% LTV loan, throw new debt on it, cash out my short-term acquisition bridge loan. I can cash out my private money investors. And now I just have non-recourse long-term debt in place with all my chips off the table, right? And so now I can actually hold this thing. My back's not up against the wall. I don't owe anybody any money, so I don't have to make any decisions adverse to the project's health itself. And my investors are paid back, and then they want to go and roll forward again. So now I can recycle their money every couple of years instead of having to recycle their money every 5 to 10 years, So there's a little bit more velocity on my investors' money. There's more velocity on the amount of buildings that I can buy. But I will say you need to really turn over a lot of rocks in order to find some good deals. And you got to be really good at operations. If you're not good at project management, I've seen some people really get their legs taken out because they couldn't manage contractors and property management companies. So we organically grew that and got pretty good at it. So and we're not afraid of rolling up our sleeves and kind of getting our hands dirty either. Like we're willing to do the messy deals, and we're probably some of the most qualified guys that can do the messy deals. So we get the deals that the smaller guys cannot, and we're also willing to do a little bit more work than the hedge funds and the real estate trusts are. So we're in kind of the sweet spot of a couple hundred units, 100 to 400 unit type properties that are pretty heavy on the value add side.
Has that strategy changed at all over time? Obviously we're going through a unique phase in the cycle right now. So has your focus ever shifted away from value add, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. I think definitely we realized, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, whatever it was, when COVID hit, I had a lot of property. Like I went on a buying spree last year and picked up over $200 million of property last year. And a lot of it was pretty heavy value add. So when COVID hit, I was like, wow, we got to get everything to the finish line. Everything was like pretty much renovated. We were on the final, appliances we still needed. And that was like a total mess of trying to get all these appliances for thousands of doors this year. And so like, I wouldn't say we pumped the brakes, but we definitely laid off the gas on acquisition. We still picked up about 800 doors or something this year. Maybe I don't even know, 900, something like that. But I really focused on operations. And a lot of the stuff that we did buy this year was more stabilized than that. So maybe we're not in for 65 cents on the dollar. Maybe we're in for 70 or 75 cents on the dollar. But it's 85, 90% occupied, and it has room to bump the rents quite a bit. So you can only get punched in the gut so many times by contractors and deal with that kind of stuff on the heavy value adds that you're like, why am I banging my head against the wall? So it was a great thing to get us where we are right now. As we're moving forward, we're still willing to do some of those deals. I won't take on too many of them at a time because of how much bandwidth it takes up on my team. But we try to balance those with more stabilized deals. But I don't pay retail for anything. Like we will not buy a $10 million building for $10 million and then hope the rents go up by 5% every year for the next 7 years just to sell it, 7 years from now. So that's just not my model. I like buying at a discount. I like kind of having a little bit of that cushion, that buffer there. And I like creating the appreciation. So we just got really good at marketing. We got really good at showing people what we do, how we do it. And, eventually I got pretty active on social media. So people would send me a message every time I post about, hey, I bought this building, or let me walk through this property. And people would be like, dude, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Will you coach me? Will you consult with me? Will you teach me how to do it? And it turned into a little bit of an education platform. So I host events like 4 times a year where I teach people how to and scale up into apartments. And that brings a lot of deal flow. So a lot of people, they take down the small ones on their own, but when they come across something where they don't have the balance sheet, or they don't have the liquidity, or they don't have the experience to take down a bigger deal, they would then assign that contract to me. I'll pay them a fee or kick them some equity in the deal. It allows me to get into deals that I didn't have to source, right? Somebody else is sourcing them for me. And at the same time, makes them some money or gets them into a deal that they would have discarded anyways. So that's how we get a lot of our deal flow today.
So you're doing deeper value adds, and there's most of my stuff has been lighter value add. So and I know there's babysitting with that. So I imagine with the deeper value add, a lot more handholding, babysitting. Do you guys do this all over the country, or do you try to stay in a few markets, or do you try to stay more at your home base, or what does that look like?
Yeah, great question. We're in my team's headquartered in Cleveland. Excuse me. My team's headquartered in Cleveland. Most of my properties are in the Southeast, though. I got a lot in Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama. I just picked up my first in Mississippi. I got a few things in Louisiana. I like the Southeast. I like that it doesn't get banged up by the snow and the ice and the freezing temperatures. I like that you can do work on the property year round. Property taxes are lower. It's more landlord friendly. So there's a lot of value to be had in the Southeast. And now, I live in Charleston too, so I'm kind of down in this area. But that's not why I originally got into the Southeast. I originally got in the Southeast because I had a buddy who said, hey man, came across an awesome deal. You want to bring some money to it. And so I brought some of my own money. I brought some private capital from some of my investors. I helped out with some of like the oversight and the administrative side of the project. And I like that. I think the bottleneck in our business is always operations and always like the project management and who's going to be boots on the ground. And so this allowed me to then focus on the scalable aspects of commercial real estate, which is the money, and the administrative side that can be done from anywhere in the world, and sponsoring the loan, things like that. And then I had a joint venture partner who did the work. And so wherever there's a great operator, and they bring us a deal, we will do a deal in that market. So I think we're in 12 different states right now. We have a bunch of different joint venture partners. Some of them have gone amazing. Some of them have not gone amazing. So I think it's important about who you're doing business with. I think, I had this very romantic view of, let me help you get into deals and let me hold your hand and let me help you build wealth. And then all of a sudden I realized some people don't want it as bad for themselves as I want it for them. And they throw in the towel early, and now it's me and my team stuck with this deal, and we don't have local boots on the ground. We have to loop somebody else in, or different management company. And so we've definitely gone through some learning curves on that front. But overall, we've gotten into great deals. We have a really good buying criteria, a very strict and disciplined buying criteria, where again, there's a lot of buffer for a margin for error, where we have a lot of different exit strategies, even if things do go south.
Awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that criteria. You know, you'd mentioned that you're willing to go into these tougher deals. What about markets? You know, are you willing to go into the tougher markets, maybe secondary or tertiary, or are you primarily focused on, you know, major metros, or what sort of criteria are you looking for there?
Yeah, I actually don't do any major metros.
Wow.
Not many anyways. I'm mostly in secondary type markets. That's kind of my sweet spot. So Charleston, South Carolina, Cleveland, Ohio. I don't know if you call that major or not. I have some stuff in Springfield, Illinois. I have some stuff in Mobile, Alabama. I have things in just outside of Atlanta, like Macon, Georgia. I have a bunch of stuff. I have stuff in Savannah, Georgia. So more like secondary. I even have some things in like some tertiary markets, but I'm actually selling most of that in order to focus more on the secondary. I think the primary stuff gets pretty inflated on a price point. And so because of that, we just haven't really pulled the trigger on anything. I still look at a lot of stuff in, you know, Dallas, Fort Worth. I still look at a lot of stuff in Houston. We actually might be taking down a big deal in Houston, working on that. I look at stuff in those markets. It's just, you know, there's people who are willing to pay way more than what I'm willing to pay at this stage in my investment career. Maybe if I get more institutional debt, cheaper debt, longer term debt, would I get into more of a traditional syndication type model and pay more of a, you know, closer to retail price and then just sit on the property long term? Maybe. But right now, for where I am and the growth phase that I'm in, like the secondary markets is really like where we're at.
So, you know, you've partnered with a lot of people and all that, and I've been the syndications I've done, I've probably partnered with about half a dozen people. Do you kind of, you know, I think maybe I saw it, maybe I didn't, but do you have them do a personality test, or, you know, what does that look like in terms of, what that partner, looks like, and what that partnership looks like. And I'll tell you that, so Hayden and I, we had a buddy of mine that I'm in a mastermind with, and he's leadership coaching, and he's, all into, DISC and personality profiles and all that other stuff. But yeah, I'd love to kind of hear what you look for in partners.
Yeah, so definitely on my internal team, we do DISC assessments, and I have like an HR director, a chief HR director on retainer for my company. So he comes in and does all my hiring, does all my staffing, and does quarterly reviews with everybody and all that kind of stuff. Helped us put core values together and organizational charts and KPIs and all that kind of stuff in place. So I think that's a really, really important role for anybody who's looking to scale up their business and really develop a real business. You don't have to hire that person in-house, but there's a lot of people out there who can be like a fractional employee of yours and act as like an advisor or a consultant in your business. So he's been helpful for my core team. As far as joint venture partners go, typically they're students that send me deals. And if we get on the phone with them, and we can tell if they're competent, if we know what their experience level is, if they've renovated lots of houses or small apartments, and we know that they're competent, we know who they were referred, how do I know them? We're looking at a lot of that kind of stuff of, if they're competent, we will partner with them. If they're not, we will partner with them with caveats, with paperwork, making sure that, expectations are set very clearly. And if they are not met, then they lose a portion of their equity. If it goes over budget, over timeline, or if it adversely affects the other partners in the deal in any way for something that they were responsible for. So we make sure that that's all dialed in. If they're not competent enough where we feel comfortable partnering with them, because you can't just, we got millions of dollars of investor capital. You can't just hand a building over to somebody who's flipped a couple houses and they think they can renovate a 200 unit apartment portfolio. It's just not going to happen. We have a fiduciary duty to do the right thing for the total overall project, not just trying to help somebody out, right? It's not charity work. But if they're competent, we love to work with them. If they're not, we say, hey, listen, let me either pay you a fee or let me kick you a couple of points of equity in the deal. And then you can kind of be involved and watch the entire process and how we do this. The next deal, we'll give you a little bit more responsibility. The next deal, we'll give you a little bit more, right? And how many people actually bite at that? Not many, because most people have short-term mindsets.
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've been doing this for a long time. You've scaled up your business. Now you're helping others scale up theirs too. And so I'm sure you've seen a lot of different things. What are the top 3 actions that you would recommend to somebody just starting out to try and help speed up their learning curve?
Yeah, man, I think that's a great question. I think early on, I spent a lot of time doing stuff that did not matter and that did not generate revenue. It did not generate deal flow. And so I think in any capacity of real estate, really there's only 2 to 3 things that you really need to be focused on. One is sourcing deals. You need to be sourcing deals all the time. I see a lot of people source deals and they get this influx of deal flow and they stop marketing for deals and they find a couple deals and they take those down and they operate them and they're ready for the next one. The well dries up and they're like, why isn't there any? Well, because you stopped sourcing deals. You have to be sourcing deals every single day, regardless of what your deal flow looks like. Even at peak capacity, you're still looking for deals. Number 2, you got to be sourcing capital all the time. So I'm talking to private money lenders, or my chief investment officer is now. We're talking to private money lenders and talking about building wealth through apartments every single day. Talking about it. I'm contacting entrepreneurs that I know. I'm contacting, executives and professionals that I know that have money. I'm just having a conversation with, what are you doing with your money? What do you, I just happen to be very, motivated by money, really the things that money does, but like my conversations always come around business and marketing and building wealth and creating a legacy for the family. And so even when I'm at a bar and I'm having a drink with somebody, naturally the conversation goes down that path of, well, dude, what do you got going on? What do you do for a living? Oh, awesome, man. How'd you get into that? And oh, you do pretty well. What do you do with your money? I'm always looking at different things to put my money into. What are you doing with yours? Oh, well, I'll do this. And naturally they start asking, well, do you take on private money investors? And so we just kind of go down that road and we have those conversations. There's also a lot of people who come out to my coaching event and they're like, hey, I like what you're doing. It's just more work than I want to do. So how about you do the work, but I have money or I have access to money. Can I bring money to your deals? And so there's a lot of that happens as well. So number 1, always be sourcing deals. Number 2, always be sourcing money. And I think we all got more aware of this year, is always be refining your operations is number 3 that I would say, is like dialing everything in. Make sure you got all the right systems and processes and procedures and checklists and people in place. So that way you're running a tight ship. And so we've been able to refine a lot this year. We already had a pretty good system in place, but we really refined and really automated a lot of elements of our business and trimmed a lot of fat. And I think if you're always doing that, like everybody thinks, oh, if I can just raise the money and find the deal, I can take down deals. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can keep the deals, right? You gotta be good at operations. If you're not good at operations, contractor's gonna burn you, tenant's gonna burn you, city's gonna burn you. And you're going to get, shoot up and spit out. A lot of the people that I buy my apartment buildings from are really, really smart entrepreneurs who make millions of dollars in their primary business. And they make so much money, they need to put it somewhere. So they think, oh, I drive by apartment buildings every day. Let me go and buy one, not realizing it's a new business, right? It's like us having a bite to eat at a restaurant saying, let's go open up a restaurant. It's a little bit different, And so these people, they just go and throw money at an apartment building. They don't know how to interview management companies. They don't have a joint venture partner. They don't have any boots on the ground. They don't have anybody who has a vested interest in that property. And they're trying to run this business, their primary business, and this new apartment building. And all of a sudden, they're taking blows from every direction. And they got to figure out, hey, am I going to lose both of them or just lose the apartment building and focus on my primary business again? And so smart entrepreneurs, multi-millionaire entrepreneurs, I go in and I buy these big buildings from them because they don't know what they're doing. And so they had the money, they found the deal, but they didn't understand operations. So you got to have all three of those things.
I think I saw that you put out a kids book,
Yeah,
entrepreneur book. Can
yeah,
you, I guess, talk a little bit about that? Love to hear more about it.
yeah, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I was coming back from a real estate mastermind actually, shoot, 3, 4 years ago now. And my daughter was like 2 years old, and I was like 31. And I'm reading The Magic of Thinking Big on the flight home, and by David Schwartz. And I was just reading like the intro, like the first chapter. I was like, son of a gun, these are such good principles. Like the thought philosophies in this are so profound. I was like, and I'm getting this at 31 years old. Imagine if I had this when I first got out of college, when I was 21 years old. Or imagine when if my daughter's 2, right? It was like her birthday month. And I was like, imagine if I could convey these thought principles to my daughter at the age of 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, the most, malleable, the most sponge-like that their brains are at that time. And that they say that the personality develops. And what if she didn't know any better? What if she always thought big? What if she always set goals? And she developed that from the age of being a toddler or being in elementary school. And it was just natural that she set goals, that she knew how to manage money, that she thought big, and she believed in her things, and she's obsessed, and she understood how to sacrifice things that she really cares about for things that she cares even more about, right? And like, what if all these things, can you imagine what she could accomplish when she turns 18 or 21 or 25? You know, how much further advanced she could be than where I was. And so I had I was like, man, I need to convey these thoughts to my daughter. Get off the plane. I start Google searching as I'm, waiting for an Uber. I start Google searching, personal development books for kids. And there were books out there that were about, maybe managing money, some about working hard, and then a lot on like the golden rule of make sure that you treat others how you want to be treated and all that stuff. But there wasn't anything on thought principles, on philosophies of success, that really we have to get after our formal education. And so, I think when when the universe or God or whatever you call it plants a seed in the back of your head, I don't think you can ignore that. And I felt an obligation to essentially say, hey, I need to come up with books that convey these thought principles. So I sat on the idea for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then just last year partnered up with my wife, who's one of the co-authors, and one of my best female friends from high school, who's another one of the co-authors. And so they author the books, and I kind of handle the business side and say, hey, more of the high level ideas, strategies, and all that kind of stuff. And we took a lot of the fundamental personal development books, like Think and Grow Rich, and we created children's versions of those books. So the first book is called Think Big and Go to Baseball Camp. The second book, based on principles of Think and Grow Rich and setting goals and whatever you can conceive and believe you can achieve, right? And so, and the sacrifices that need to be made, and obsessing over those goals, and focusing on that, and so that way you can overcome the short-term hurdles and obstacles that you're going to face. So that's our first one. Our second one, which just got released last month, I think, is based on how to win friends and influence people. Dale Carnegie's classic. It's called How to Win Class President and Influence Peers. And so it's really, really good. The kid runs for class president, and he's got to go through all these things where he remembers people's names, and he shows genuine interest in what they're doing, and doesn't criticize, condemn, or complain. And he goes through all this stuff, and it's a cute story. I mean, they're really good. I can say that because I didn't write them, right? Like the two girls wrote them, and they're really, really good stories. We've got 2 more coming out. One's based on the richest man in Babylon. It's called The Richest Kid in the Neighborhood. So that'll be out probably after the first of the year. And then we have one other one coming out. What's the other one? The Power of Positive Thinking, based off of whatchamacallit. What's his name? The author? I can't remember. Norman Vincent Peale's book. And so I don't know. I think working title is like Power of Positivity. And so it's really, really good. Kind of frames mindset of how lucky we are, of There's always something to compare it to, right? As bad as you think your situation is, there's always something to compare it to. Feel blessed all the time, feel positive all the time, and saying good things and positive affirmations and all that kind of stuff. And so all the books are really, really good, and all the characters are named after a lot of the titans of industry. So Ford is the main character. With the girl, one of his best friends, her name's Morgan, after J.P. Morgan. And then there's Rocky, named after Rockefeller, and Andrew, named after Carnegie, and a bunch of like different people. Like his neighbor next door is an engineer. His name's Mr. Edison. And so it's kind of cute, where it kind of tips the hat to some pretty influential people in the past. And and then there's a workbook that we created to go along with each one of them, with coloring pages and mazes and word searches and definitions and additional kind of like activities on how to set your own goals and do all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool, and it's definitely not a moneymaker, but it's an impact piece, right? So we're making an impact and getting some amazing reviews from people. So it means a lot, and we're really excited for it.
That's really cool. I mean, you're clearly a big advocate of personal development.
Mm-hmm.
So could you speak to maybe some, daily success habits, or maybe yearly routines that you do to be able to cultivate a positive mindset to help you overcome those challenges that you face?
Man, great question. I think 90% of this business, dude, is mindset. I think 90% of it is right here. The other 10% is just showing up. You show up and you have the right mindset, you can accomplish anything. And I, early on in my career, worked harder on my mindset than I did even in my business. And I just read the personal development books. I listened to great podcasts like this one, right? I'm listening to audiobooks. You got to understand, like, there's a lot of things that you can do to increase your personal development, but there's also a lot of things you need to do to reduce the intake of content that you have coming in. There's a lot of toxins out there as well. Like, you can bake a cake with sugar and flour or cement, right? And it's not going to turn out that good if you put cement in your cake. So, like, how do you make sure that the good stuff goes in and the bad stuff stays out? And the world is riddled with good content and bad content. And so you have to understand and classify what's good and what's bad, and only let the good stuff in. You got to stand guard, right, at your mind. That's what Jim Rohn always said. And so I'm very, very disciplined in the stuff that I listen to or that I don't listen to. Like, if somebody who I know is broke is trying to give me financial advice, like a financial planner, right, who has no money and is a salesperson, and they're trying to tell me what I should do with my wealth, like, I listen to my mentors who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars, because that's where I want to be, right? I'm not going to take advice from somebody who has less money than me financially, just like you wouldn't take relationship advice from somebody who's been divorced 6 times, right? And it could be the same person that you take advice from for one thing and not the other. Donald Trump, I would take financial advice, but I wouldn't take relationship advice from Donald Trump, right? Like, it's one person that I respect in one capacity, but not in another. And so, and there's books that I've read that I love, and I've adopted a lot of the philosophies. And there's books that I've read that I was like, I don't agree with any of this stuff. And I think you can't just take everything at surface value. You have to, like, really thought audit and think about why they're saying that, or why I'm thinking this way, and all that kind of stuff. And I think just being aware is a big deal. Being emotionally intelligent and understanding, personal awareness, social awareness, and understanding your thoughts and why you think certain ways, because your thoughts dictate, your emotions. Your emotions are going to dictate your actions. Your actions are going to dictate your results down the road. And so understanding that it all starts with your thoughts, like, you gotta control that. So, like, I don't watch the news. I just don't watch it. It's just all negativity. It's not news anymore. It used to be news 30, 40 years ago. Now it's just opinion-based garbage, right? And so it's just toxic. I don't watch reality TV shows, right? It's toxic. Like, there are some TV shows that I do watch. We were talking before we actually started recording, The Men Who Built America. I love documentaries about business and success and successful people who have accomplished amazing things, maybe not even monetarily, but maybe in other aspects of life. And so I love doing that kind of stuff. I'll go on a binge on Wikipedia, just reading about, reading people's biographies and stuff on Wikipedia. I think that's kind of cool. The Men Who Built America is all about the titans of industry and how they built these massive organizations and influenced society today. They also just made The Food That Made America, which is about like Kellogg and the Kellogg brothers and the Post family and Bird's Eye frozen foods and all these different players in the food, Heinz ketchup in the food industry. But it looks at it from a business standpoint. Same thing with, they just made the cars that made America. So it's about Ford, Chrysler, and Dodge Brothers, and GM, and Chevrolet, and all these guys too. So that all, I'm pay attention to that. I listen to that, and I don't listen to this other stuff. I don't listen to negative music. I used to listen to like a bunch of rap music and like grunge punk rock kind of stuff all the time, but it was always like negative, like I hate my parents and like all that. I was like, why do I listen to this stuff? So I stopped listening to that, and I just listened to good stuff, like, I don't know, whatever's positive and uplifting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, I'm just very aware of what I'm putting into my brain. And then I think a lot of it comes down to the people that you're hanging out with as well. I mean, we've all heard that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. I mean, that's mindset. That's physically, if you're hanging out with 5 people eating French fries every single day, you're probably going to eat some French fries, right? Relationally, if you're hanging out with 5 people who are cheating on their spouse every single day, you're probably going to end up cheating on your spouse because you think it's okay, right? Versus hanging out with people who eat salads every day, you're going to lose some weight and you're going to work out, right? Or hanging out with people who really appreciate their relationships, they're looking to develop their marriage and their parentship. I mean, you're going to become a better parent, a better spouse by hanging out with those kinds of people. Same thing financially, same thing mentally, right? And when you're talking to people about where you're going, instead of just, the stuff you've done in high school and college and how you got drunk and, did stupid stuff back in the day, like, I don't have fun with those conversations anymore. Maybe a couple times a year around the holidays when I see my buddies or something, we catch up. But if they're not on a path with a common future, like, I limit those relationships.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that the quote, the Jim Rohn quote, "You're the average of the 5 people you hang around." That's constantly just going through my head all day long. I'm, who am I around? Because I'm, the different masterminds and things I've joined, I want to be, I want to feel like I almost don't belong in the room. I want, I want to level up. So that's awesome.
Masterminds have been a game changer for me, Dustin. Like, that really accentuated the entire idea and the concept of like, and people are like, oh, it costs $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to be in a mastermind. It's an investment. Like, if you don't get that much benefit times 5 out of that mastermind, you're doing something wrong, because there's deal flow in there, there's money flow in there, there's opportunities. You're going to fall backwards into deals just through osmosis of being in that room. So first of all, it's an investment, but secondly, it keeps the people who aren't willing to invest in themselves out. It keeps kind of the I don't mean this in an insulting way, but it's just like the people who aren't at that level of thinking yet can't come in the room, right? So you're paying kind of for who's in the room, but also for who's not in the room and who can't get in the room. And so those masterminds are powerful because just the level of the conversations, it forces you, exactly as you're saying, to just think way bigger than you ever would have thought in your normal circles.
Yeah, for sure. Would you mind sharing some of your, you're super goal oriented and all that, some of your goals over the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, right? Like, we chase these shiny objects, and I've learned from chasing shiny objects that if you try to do too many things, you can't do anything really well. And some of the most successful businesses and business owners that I know are boring, mundane, like oh my goodness, like just boring type businesses, but they print money because they're so good at what they do. And you think about Think about doctors, right? General practitioner, doctor, you make, I don't know, 150 grand, 180 grand a year. But if you're a neurosurgeon or if you are some sort of specialized doctor, you're making somewhere between $600,000 to $800,000 a year, or multiple seven figures even. So like that shows that the more focused you are, the more money that you can make, and the more successful that you can be in that capacity. So I've gotten really good at kind of refining and not taking on too many things at any given time. So really got two goals, financial goals anyways. One is to grow my education business. And so I was partnered up with a publishing company, like a publishing media type company that handled everything before. And then I just took that over. So I bought them out because all the stuff that happened with COVID, it was an opportunity for us to go our separate ways. So I bought them out over the summer. And now I'm developing, just refining my education business. And I want to grow the heck out of that. I got a couple masterminds and then my, just the coaching thing that I have. So that's a big deal. And I think we could do about 3 to 3.5 million next year in gross revenue just on the education side with 3 products. And there's about a 75% margin on that too. So there's a lot of upside profit on that. That's a good, pays for the lifestyle, right? So now I pay my bills with that, but it also, more importantly, generates deal flow, money flow, and access to resources for operations. All 3 of the things that I had mentioned about before. So now it helps my investment business where I'm going to build wealth, right? And I can take all the money. I don't have to live off of that money from the investment business. I can roll it all forward into more deals, into more units, and go broke buying more assets, which is going to build way more wealth long term. And so, again, I think I mentioned before, I'm selling a little over 2,000 doors right now. And if they all go through, I'm gonna be returning a lot of capital to my investors. I'm gonna have a lot, 8 figures of my own cash that I'll be sitting on, and my other joint venture partner on those deals will have 8 figures as well. And we'll just be ready to rock and roll. And we're gonna be in acquisition mode big time, starting in like probably February, March. And so my goal is get into some bigger stuff, get into stuff that's a little bit more stabilized, maybe leverage my own cash, my investor cash, into bringing on some institutional money, and probably opening up a fund. But my goal is next year is pick up 4,000 doors, and then the following year pick up 4,000 or 5,000 more. So if I get to 10,000 doors, 10 to 12,000 doors, I'll be at about $1 billion of portfolio value. And because I buy like B class stuff, so I don't do anything luxury. I don't do anything that's like C or D class. I stick to B plus, A minus kind of areas, and nice product in those areas. So I make it nice. It's usually distressed, but I either build it or I'll renovate it. So my goal is to hit $1 billion in assets in the next 24 months. And then from there, I don't really know. Like, one of the things I've realized is things change so much as success kind of compounds, that I used to set goals that are 15 years out and they just completely get blown out of the water. I'm like, I don't even know why I do that anymore. So I really only set goals like 3 years out. And I really, this year and next year, really my focus, the next 24 months, is getting to $1 billion in assets. And I know growing the education will grow the investment portfolio. And then I think from there, I'll probably do like $1 billion fund and just control the money, because I think that's very scalable. And we're pretty good at raising money. So I think if I can ramp up that side of things, we'll keep on growing the portfolio. But I don't know. I don't know what other opportunities are going to come available. I might just go and buy a bunch of rainforests and try to save the rainforest after that. I have no idea.
Cool. Those are some great goals, and you've shared a lot of great tips with us today. So thank you for that. And we want to be respectful of your time. I know you're busy. So if you could just maybe share some final words, what advice would you want to leave people off with, maybe where you'd like to potentially direct people?
Yeah. I mean, if anybody wants to connect, feel free to hit me up on social media. I'm very active on Facebook and Instagram and all that. So just shoot me a friend request or a follow on there. So I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much for having me. I think we had a good conversation. And I think as far as parting thoughts go, I think just stay focused, right? Like, the more focused you are on finding deals, raising capital, and refining your operations, like, those are the only 3 things that matter. So as you're doing your goal setting for 2021 and you're planning out what your activities look like, focus on those activities. You know, the only activity that brings deal flow is making offers. That's the only one that you can control anyways, right? The only activity that brings money and investor flow is having conversations. You know, how many conversations you have on a daily basis with prospective private money lenders. And then number three is just always looking at your profit and loss statement, seeing where you can increase income, decrease expenses, right? Like that's how you refine operations. So if you're doing those three things all the time, and then going back to Dustin's point, joining a mastermind, because as you grow, as you increase your revenue and your net worth and your level of success increases, you will hit new levels of problems that come with it also. And in order to punch through those problems as quickly as possible, you got to be in a mastermind. And I love, like, not just, the good thing about masterminds is, like, it's not just one mentor, it's a group of mentors, and you can lean on different people in the group for different things. And they can be at different levels as well. And so the mastermind, especially one that meets a few times a year, is powerful and has helped me get on the trajectory that I've been on. And so that's why I believe so heavily in them. So focus on the activities that you can control and the ones that matter, that generate revenue. And then make sure you join some sort of a community that's going to allow you to plug in and problem solve and offer resources to punch through any hurdles as you continue to level up every 90 to 120 days. So I think those are the most important and most impactful things that you can do for 2021.
Awesome. Well, yeah, really appreciate your time, and you know, look forward to connecting more. And yeah, we'll you know, love following your story. And I have a 9-year-old son, and so I'm gonna have to go out and grab some of those books for Christmas.
Yeah, littlelegacylibrary.com.
Oh,
Little Legacy Library. I forgot to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, excited about that. So
appreciate it, guys. Have a happy holiday. Thanks so much for having me.